Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Caroline Heward and I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. Our show today is Talking Heads and I'm an expert presenter in today's topic, which is libido issues in relationships, and it's part of the Mind and Body Connection series. Let's begin. I always like to start with a quote, and I struggled to find quotes that I could meaningfully connect with. So I went to the Collins Dictionary. So I went to dictionaries to see what the dictionaries said. And in the Collins Dictionary, libido is a noun, and it quotes, "A person's libido is the part of their personality that is considered to cause their emotional, especially sexual desires. Lack of sleep is a major factor in loss of libido." So I felt that this was a bit more encompassing in terms of what I'm going to look at today. And I further felt that it still wasn't giving me enough of a description and enough of a definition for this presentation. So I went a little bit further for this presentation and found another reference. Libido is an Oxford reference, and the full meaning, the Latin word libido means desire, lust. And it was borrowed from Sigmund Freud as the name for a concept in his own theories. At first, he defined libido to mean the instinctual energy associated with sex drive. I felt that this was a little bit more encompassing of the kind of issues that we're going to look at. And well done, Sigmund Freud, for bringing it to our attention. There's a little bit more to go of this definition. In psychoanalytic theory, that was Sigmund Freud's theory, the life instinct, or specifically the sexual instinct, the libido, like the death instinct, is said to be one of the fundamental sources of energy for all mental life. And the second part of this full meaning in the Oxford reference, sexual desire, reduced or low libido, may be caused by psychological or physical factors. I felt that this fuller meaning gives us more of an understanding of the term libido, as it's generally bandied about and lots of people use that white label terminology of "I have libido issues" without really looking at what's underneath it. And when people generally talk about libido, it's usually the physical aspect of libido. I want to look at, as always in my presentations, how it physically affects us, as well as emotionally, and what the psychological factors are. And so I felt that this more encompassing, fuller meaning that's listed in the Oxford reference of the dictionary felt like it was much more encompassing for this presentation. So libido issues, when we think about them and we just think about that term, We generally think about couple difficulty, that there's a depression going on, there's health problems for men and for women, testosterone relationship issues, a crisis and a dysfunction, in sexual dysfunction, a disorder. There's usually associated with people arguing, failure, stress, divorce. Many people land up getting divorced over libido issues. But the whole thing is very negative, and it tends to reside in the aspect of the physical, and it manifests in the emotional and the mental realms of the relationship. Generally, when we think about the term libido, we're generally in a very negative space of our thinking. And so this picture depicts what might happen in a couple situation that are suffering with libido issues. And this picture depicts that the woman is suffering with libido issues and the man is holding his head in his hands, not knowing what he can do and just literally beside himself. When the sexual intimacy and the desire for sexual intimacy is missing, it can cause all sorts of very, very severe conflict within a relationship, whether it's same-sex relationships or heterosexual relationships, because we are both masculine and feminine energy. And even in same-sex relationships, there still will be a masculine dominant and a feminine dominant in that relationship. And so it'll be the libido of both parties that will have an impact and an effect. This is very, very much depicting a scenario that could happen in a relationship that's suffering with libido issues. So looking at further issues in relationships, how it can affect us, and what kinds of things affect our libido. So if you're on prescription medication, medication for, say, heart problems, or medication such as steroids or beta blockers, or things that are going to affect the heart rate and the blood pressure, all of these types of medications, including medications for arthritis, for immunity disorders such as cancer, autoimmune disorders, all of these types of medications can affect a person's libido. Also, lifestyle choices. If you're drinking more than is appropriate in terms of your body being able to cope with the alcohol consumption, that can cause a libido issue, both for men and women. If you're smoking, that can deplete your appetite. It will suppress your desire and your appetite in terms of your sexual desire in your relationship. If you're too busy, we have a busyness in terms of the way that we live in our culture and our society today, that we have a too busy to do something, or too busy, I'm too focused in work, I'm too busy, and we tend to forget the relationship. We can be too busy in our work aspects, we can be too busy in our domesticity, in looking after the children, in doing all the things that you would associate with domesticity in a relationship, looking after the home, shopping, cooking, cleaning, and generally being there for everything apart from being in the relationship. And when you're too busy for the relationship, libido issues can set in. If there is sickness, if there is any autoimmune disorders, if there is any digestive disorders, heart problems, if there is a more life-threatening issue, if the person is suffering with things like pneumonia or colds or flu, you're not going to feel that sexual desire, because the body and the mind will be very, very in tune with making sure that it's working very hard to deflect the sickness and make you well. So the sexual desire that comes out of being well will be affected if there is a sickness, either for yourself or with the other person. You might have become a carer for the other person in your relationship. And when you become a carer for the person, then your role switches from being in that couple and that relationship, that desiring relationship, into looking after them as a carer. And those two frequencies of energy are different. They're different in terms of the way that you would be and act in that relationship. If there is an infidelity, if one or either of the partners or both partners decide to or cheat on the other partner, this can bring huge libido issues into the relationship, especially if it's been identified as an infidelity. And so it's known within the relationship that either one or both partners have cheated on the other. This can create a shutdown in the emotions and feelings. When the emotions and feelings shut down, that's when the libido can be completely dampened. A little bit more about the libido and how it gets dampened a little bit later in this presentation. You can get very comfortable. Let me say that again. You can get very comfortable in your relationship, that you almost stop working at it. You get very comfortable in becoming yourself and not having to think about the other person. This can happen when you feel so relaxed in your relationship that you get so comfortable at being yourself, you almost forget about the other person, sort of because they become part of the fixtures and fittings, part of the furniture of the relationship. And when you get very comfortable in that relationship, you almost stop trying or stop making an effort. And when the other person or you stop making an effort, this can affect your libido. So looking at some other aspects of what can create libido issues in relationships, if you're stressed within your work, within your daily life, whether it's work, friendships, within your relationship, whether you're having anxiety issues in any aspect of your life, this can create libido issues. Now, when you are anxious, you are thinking in future tense. You are thinking about what might happen, what could happen. And when you are focused on what might happen, what could happen, you're in the mind. And when you're stressed, you're in the mind. Now, libido resides in the mind. And so when you're not, when you are stressed and feeling anxious and not feeling in your sexual desires of your intimate relationship, that can really have an impact, because the emotions and feelings are where the belly is. And this is where the sexual energy resides. So the lower belly, below the belly button, is where your sexual energy resides. And this is the place of the libido issue. When there is a libido issue, it will be that the emotions and feelings have been shut down. And when you shut down the emotions and feelings, the escape route is the mind. And so you think, talk, analyze, converse through everything. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the bedroom, walking the dog, watching a movie, whether you're listening to this presentation, you might be working out or trying to work out what I'm saying. And while you're working out what I'm saying, or trying to work out what I'm saying, you're missing what I'm saying because the mind is very busy. And while you're in the mind, you're not in the emotions and feelings. And being present. And when you're not being present, this is where sexual dysfunction resides. Because when you're in the mind, you can only exist there rather than feel the intensity of pleasure that you desire. The intensity of pleasure, whether it be physical, emotional, or sexual, doesn't reside in the mind. It resides in the emotions and feelings, and being connected to the heart and being connected to your emotions and feelings and your five sensories. These are the places where you will experience the most desire and the most pleasure in your life. And so sexual dysfunction occurs when we're disconnected with our body, and then we live in our mind. So we think, talk, and analyze in everything we do, including being in our intimacy in the bedroom with our partner. And when you are in the mind, then everything becomes logical, practical, almost a disconnection. And this is what sexual dysfunction is. It's a disconnection with the body where you're focused predominantly in the mind, looking to experience, pushing the boundaries to experience intensity of pleasure and desire, but you don't. And while you're in the mind, you won't. And this is where all sorts of strategies for couples can come in, whether they go and explore things like BDSM, if they push the boundaries of exploring their sexual appetites to feel. The reason that these experiences and these boundaries are pushed is because the person doesn't feel, and they want to feel a sensitivity of pleasure rather than a practical, physical, logical outcome, which they don't actually experience the intensity of pleasure that they desire. And in the sexual dysfunction area, for men, there will be three aspects which I will briefly go through, where there will be a libido issue in the genital area. So there will be things like premature ejaculation. That means that the person comes very quickly, or the opposite, which will be delayed ejaculation. So they find it very difficult to complete, to climax, and that is because the one is the opposite side of the other. They're both the same. Or the final one for men is erectile dysfunction, where they find it very difficult to get an erection. And all of those aspects are because they're in the mind. While you're thinking about these different physical symptoms, then they create in your intimacy. Whatever you're thinking about creates. And so it is important to understand that even though these types of libido issues are very physical and very debilitating in a relationship, actually they're coming from what you're thinking about and what you're focused on in your mind. And it's because there's a shutdown of emotions and feelings that you don't feel, you think, talk and analyze through every aspect and topic in your life. And so when you're in that aspect of thinking and analyzing or conversing, you're not in the experience of the sensory and the experience of your desire and your pleasure. So you don't feel anything. And the whole aspect of not feeling anything and then pushing the envelope to feel is that you never feel anything, because generally a person with these types of sexual dysfunction issues are usually focused on the symptom, the physicality of the symptom, rather than looking at the emotional aspect of what's not working. And for women, the sexual dysfunction can occur when there is pregnancy, when there is a bereavement issue, and for men too. So both for men and for women that are going through the same grieving process, that can dampen down, shut down the feelings and emotions of what they really truly wish to experience. And the feelings and emotions are dampened down to protect, because the body naturally protects itself. And when the feelings and emotions are shut down, the escape route is the mind. Remember, the sexual energy resides in the lower belly, just below the belly button, and that's where the sexual energy is. Feelings and emotions. That's your desire, that's your magic spot, that's the zone, that's the place where creation happens. This is how we can procreate. This is the center of our creation. This is the second chakra, and it is the center of all creation. And if we can get down to that center of creation, the most powerful creation is when we create a baby. But the other side of that creation, and this is what the monks do, is they bring out that energy into the heart and create incredible amounts of compassion in the world. And this is what a healer does. They bring out that energy from the sexual chakra into the heart, and they use it for healing of themselves and for others. It's very powerful when you realize how powerful this particular energy is. It is the center of extreme amounts of creativity. This is where singers find their creativity, actors, actresses. This is the place where musicians will find their zone. This is where sports people will move to. It's called the zone. When you get down into the zone, the mind goes silent. The mind is utterly silent, and the body begins to experience everything from a sensory experience, from the place of being in the zone of desire. And that desire can bring all sorts of incredible connections, because when you're in the zone, you can create anything. When you're in the mind restricts you. But when you're in the sensory experience of the zone, reconnected back to your emotions and feelings and reconnected to your heart, there's all sorts of experiences that you can create for yourself, for others, and for people around you. So sexual dysfunction is essentially a shutdown of your feelings and emotions. And it can come from all sorts of reasons. The body naturally protects. So it can come from bereavement, it can come from sickness in the family, from a lifestyle change, a promotion, a demotion, a career change, a work issue. It can come from a friendship breakdown or a relationship shift or change. Certainly, we've had a lot of trauma in our current times, a lot of countries in war zones. So people that have come from war zones or countries in conflict, they will generally suffer with sexual dysfunction because they're in survival. They will have shut down their feelings and emotions. The escape route is the mind, and they will be in a state of survival. So they will be thinking, analysing, and experiencing from a place of survival rather than from the place that we were born to experience from. So children can have an impact and create libido issues in a family. And also, if you've been together for a long time, you can actually become friends. And when you're friends, it's very difficult to be in an intimate physical sexual relationship when you are in a friendship with that person. And so there is an aspect of getting so close to the person that you're with that friendship overrides and becomes the mainstay of your relationship, which can create libido issues both ways. So how do we move on from having libido issues? Well, the greatest thing that you can do is have an emotional release, to release whatever you're experiencing that you're not allowing yourself to experience. Let me say that again. Whatever you're experiencing and yet not allowing yourself to experience. So if there has been some stress in your life, or an event or an issue that you've not handled, the most natural thing that the body does is to shut down your feelings and emotions to protect you. It's not something you decide, it's not something you think about, it protects you. That's how the body works. And so when it shuts down, that means that you will almost feel like you're on autopilot. And what I mean by that is you'll be going through the motions without the emotion. You'll be almost robotic and practical and logical rather than emotional and feeling. And that can create a real issue in the way that you experience every aspect of your life. If you are feeling angry and suppress it, this can create a libido issue. So the advice, the invitation is to allow your emotions to release. Feel comfortable to cry if you feel sad. Feel comfortable to be angry if you are angry. And feel comfortable to be comfortable in whatever emotion comes up for you to release. Because it is in the place where we sit on our hands and sit and push down the emotions that we can create libido issues, not only for ourselves, but for our relationships. I highly recommend, and there are many, many people that do this and it works well, having a date night in your relationship where you, if you have children, you put the children in the care of somebody that babysits them, and you take time out to be together as a couple, to go out for dinner, to do something together. It's commonly termed date night, to have that date, to rekindle those emotions, those excitement feelings that you used to have when you were dating. Talking therapies. It's amazing how talking therapies can help just by literally talking to a professional about what's going on for you. Because you might be focused on the physicality of the libido issue in your relationship, but by talking it through, you will probably find all sorts of relationship issues of what's been causing the problems for you. I personally help many people by, when they give me the symptom, what symptom that they have, looking back at what's caused the problems in the first place. So root cause therapy, which is very powerful because that can be an immediate space of releasing the emotions. Couple therapy is another therapy that is very helpful. And it depends whether you're both engaged in looking at couple therapy. Usually one is more than the other. So for some, it's not the ideal. But the couple therapy that I'm actually inviting you to look at is psychosexual therapy. You know, looking at what happens when you hold somebody, when you hug someone, why you don't, why you're distant in terms of the experience that you have in terms of your libido, and what happens in that intimacy. And generally, most people that are in that level of disintimacy and experiencing libido issues will probably become distant from each other. And so having something like couple therapy can focus the attention on you as a couple and what your anxieties are and what your feelings are about different aspects of how you experience your intimacy. It's powerful therapy. It can really, really be very revelationary in terms of how each of you see the other person and what triggers you and what makes it difficult in that relationship. It's important to express yourself as yourself. And sometimes when we're in a relationship, we forget to be ourselves. We forget to be who we really are. And we almost become merged into being a role in that couple, being the wife, the husband, the daughter, the brother. We become emaciated in being in a role rather than expressing who we really are from the place of who we're really being, underneath all the expectations that we place on ourselves, as well as what others place on us. Being a couple. It might sound really simple. It's more simple than it sounds, because when we're in a relationship and suffering with libido issues, we almost become isolated in that experience, in that shutdown. And we're in an internal conversation, an internal dialogue about that issue that we're experiencing, about that feeling of being on autopilot, going through the motions without the emotion. And we almost forget that we are in a couple, and we can become domestic in being in that couple. Here's my invitation. What was it like when you first started dating? There was an excitement, there was butterflies, there was excitement of the new and what could be. And that text or that email that came through, or that little message or that call that suddenly made you feel different and alive. These are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Rekindling that being a couple can help you move on from libido issues. Here's a quote from Gautama Buddha, which I actually shared as a Valentine message today, because it is also Valentine's Day today. And I felt that this was a quote that really encompassed what can happen in a relationship. You can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself. And that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Gautama Buddha. Let me just say the last bit again. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. One of the things that we forget to do, we forget to love ourselves. We forget to honour who we really are. And if we can't love ourselves, honour ourselves, and almost fall in love with who we are, it's very difficult for anyone else to fall in love with us and to have that passion if we haven't got it in ourselves. I like to liken it to a sort of a scenario of a mirror. Whatever you see in others, it's because you can see it in yourself. And if you see that the other person doesn't love you, it is probably because you don't love you either. And if you love you wholeheartedly, if you accept you for who you are, if you can truly be who you really are, the other person can fall in love with you, the authentic you, who you were meant to be. But we forget, and we start to put on this mask of thinking that we should be something else for everyone else. But this is where libido steps in. If we can't love ourselves and honour ourselves for who we are, our emotions and feelings suffer. And they suffer to such a point that we live on autopilot through our minds rather than through our heart. And when we are living in that space of being in our minds, we are not experiencing life as we were truly naturally meant to experience life. And you can search the entire universe and never find what you're looking for. If you're looking for something external to you, you will never find it, because this intimacy is internal. It's you. Everything is you. And all that happens is our mind, our body, and our external environment reflects our internal environment. If you are suffering in a toxic experience of sickness and illness, it's because there is a high level of acidity in your body, which is created from anger. And while you are angry, you are in the low level vibrations, and it is very difficult to find a place of self-love and self-worth in that place. So my invitation for you is to step into your greatness by falling in love with yourself. And when you fall in love with yourself, you release all sorts of incredible chemicals. Give yourself a hug. It releases oxytocin. It's also known as the love drug, and makes you feel good. Give someone else a hug and spread the love. And when you're in that space, that really, really pleasant space of the oxytocin, that natural hormone release, there is no libido issue for you or for your partner. I want to finish with a quote from Chris Gilham. While there are a great many agents in nature which boost libido and enhance sexual function, chocolate alone actually promotes the brain chemistry of being in love. Chris Gilham. I found that really interesting because I do like my bar of chocolate out of the fridge, cold, in the bottom drawer where it's coldest. And it gives me a sense of sweetness, a sense of a chemical reaction that makes me feel good. The taste, the texture of chocolate just makes me feel amazing. And so this would make sense that it would enhance your sexual function, because it reaches a place that other things can't reach. It releases the natural hormone in the body, which would boost your libido and enhance your sexual function. There are many other foods that will do that, such as green tea will boost your libido. There are many different ways you can boost your libido. But my invitation for you is to connect to your heart, to connect to your feelings and emotions, and allow your feelings and emotions to feel comfortable. And this is the place where you can have the ultimate experiences of pleasure and being in the zone. Thank you for your attention and your interest. Please subscribe to USA Global TV and Radio. You can find all of our Talking Heads episodes under Talking Heads 2023. You can find all my Talking Heads episodes under my name, Caroline Heward, and you will find all the episodes that I did last year under my name. There are many, many different aspects and topics that I have covered, and I've only briefly covered this one. I can get very, very deep into the aspects and topics that I look at in Talking Heads. Please feel free to reach out and connect with me if you feel that I may be of service to you. I offer a free initial 30-minute consultation to help you bust your stress. You can reach me on nomorestress@live.co.uk. Let me know what your issue is, what you'd like help with. Or you can call me directly if you're international, +44. If you're local, 07523 120 189. I look forward to helping you overcome your libido issues. You will be surprised how much more peaceful you will feel and experience life once you've had a consultation with me. Usually there is more to it, and if there is more to it, then I am happy to look at how I can further help you with the different programs. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you next week. Namaste.